The bus rattled to a stop on the edge of this dusty border town, and I stepped off, with the contract burning in my pocket. High stakes this time. Eliminate a woman tied to the pork processing factory family, the kind that runs smuggling on the side. Dust clogged my throat as I headed to the saloon, the weight of my hidden blade pressing against my thigh like a promise. There she was, across the crowded room, leaning on the bar. Her gaze caught mine, sharp and unyielding, pulling me in before I could blink. I felt the job shift under my skin. I'd been drifting on the rural fringes for years, taking hits in places where the horizon stretched too far and people kept their distance. No routes, no names I remembered. Just the next job, clean and quick. That's how I liked it. Cold detachment kept me alive. I'd wake in motels that smelled of stale smoke and regret, check my gear, and move on. Attachments were for fools who ended up buried in shallow graves. This life suited me fine, or so I told myself as the sun beat down on endless dirt roads. The call came from an old contact, voice low over a crackling line. Need you for something big. Pork processing family out west, running a smuggling ring through their factory. The daughter's the key. Eliminate her, and the operation crumbles. I didn't ask details. Money wired half up front, the rest on proof. Simple. I packed my blade, a silenced pistol tucked in my boot, and boarded that bus headed for the border. The factory loomed in my mind, all steam and slaughter, a perfect cover for dirty work. By the time I hit town, the air hung heavy with the tang of meat and machine oil. I needed an inn, something close enough to strike without drawing eyes. Posing as a drifter looking for factory work wasn't hard. The foreman barely glanced at my forged papers, grunted about shifts starting at dawn, and waved me toward the bunkhouse. I kept my head down, blending into the rhythm of men and women hauling crates, the constant whine of saws cutting through bone. But her, Elena, they called her. She ran the lines like she owned the blood on the floor. First sighting up close came that afternoon, me scrubbing down a processing station while she adjusted the controls on the conveyor. Her hands moved sure over the levers, grease smudged on her knuckles, calluses thick from years of this grind. Our eyes met across the steam rising from the scalding tanks, and there was that pull again, unspoken challenge in her dark gaze. Like she saw through the sweat on my brow to the blade waiting. The factory pulsed around us, hogs screeching in the pens outside, blades whirring inside. I felt the hum vibrate through my boots, matching the thud in my chest. She didn't smile, just nodded once, sharp, as if testing me. New? Keep up or you'll lose a finger. Her voice cut low, edged with the accent of someone who'd fought for every inch here. I nodded back, wiping down the metal, but my mind mapped her. Quick turns, the way she braced against the machine's shake. The job screamed to end it now, slip in close during the next break. But something held me. Her focus, maybe, mirroring the isolation I'd carved into my bones. No family photos in her locker, just a worn rag and a knife for scraping hides. Like me. Shift dragged, bodies slick with effort, the air thick with brine and iron. I caught glimpses, her directing a worker to fix a jam chute, muscles taut under her shirt, no nonsense in her commands. By evening, as the whistle blew and shadows lengthened across the killing floor, I slipped out to the perimeter fence. Night fell fast here, stars punching through the haze. I should have struck then, clean from the dark. But I decided to observe closer. One more day to confirm, to watch how she moved through this world of slaughter and secrets. The blade felt heavier as I turned back, dust settling on my shoulders. Her gaze lingered in my head, a crack in the wall I'd built so high. Next morning hit like a hammer, the factory whistle piercing the bunkhouse dark. I rolled out, muscles already aching from yesterday's pretend, and joined the line of workers shuffling toward the gates. Posing as one of them felt right in the grime, overalls stiff with old blood, boots caked in mud from the pens. I grabbed a hose for the processing lines, blasting away scraps of fat and bone that clung like regrets. The machinery's hum vibrated up my arms, a steady throb against the numbness I'd carried for years. It was mechanical, relentless, mirroring the jobs I'd done. Pull the trigger, wipe clean, move on. But here, the water ran red, swirling into drains, and I wondered if it could wash away more than just the day's kill.
Elena was there early, directing the startup.
She caught my eye across the scalding tanks, nodded once. You on cleanup? Follow me. Her voice pulled me in, low and sure. I trailed her to a section of belts and blades, the air thick with steam from the hot water baths. She showed me how to maintain the equipment, tightening bolts on the conveyors, oiling the gears that ground through hide and meat. Our bodies brushed in the narrow space, shoulders close as she demonstrated a lever pull. Heat rose, not just from the machines. Her arm grazed mine, steady pressure, and I felt the steam cling to my skin like sweat. Like this, she said, hand over the wrench, guiding without touching long. I nodded, focused on the metal, but my pulse matched the piston's rhythm. The job whispered to end it here, slip the blade in the confusion of noise. But her scent, sweat and faint soap, cut through the brine.
Break came mid-shift, workers scattering to the canteen.
I poured coffee, black and bitter, and she slid onto the bench across from me. First, real talk, away from the wine. You handle the lines okay? She asked, stirring sugar, slow. I shrugged, tasting the burn. Learned quick. Laughter slipped out then, over a story of a jammed chute from my past jobs. Nothing true, but it fit. Her mouth curved, rare and real, cracking the wall I'd built. Most new ones freeze up. You don't. Subtle tension hung there, in the way her eyes held mine longer than needed. The professional in me tensed, but something else warmed, like steam seeping into cracks.
Later, wiping down the break room after, she lingered.
Words came easy in the quiet. Family's all in this factory now, she said, voice dropping. Lost my folks young, accident in the pens. Trampled. Left me and my brother to hold it. Isolation mirrored my own, that hollow after a hit, no one to claim the pieces. I saw her then, not just the target, guarded eyes hiding the weight. Moral flicker hit hard, a doubt like rust on steel. Was she smuggling to survive, or just caught in the grind? My story stayed locked, but I nodded, shared a vague loss of my own. Same. Alone fits sometimes. Her hand paused on a rag, understanding silent.
Complications struck that afternoon.
Foreman rounded the corner, eyes narrow on me. You, papers again. Don't like drifters. Heart thudded, blade's weight a reminder. Elena stepped in smooth. He's solid, showed him the works. Give him time. Foreman grunted, backed off, but suspicion lingered like smoke. I covered, quick, mumbling about steady work, and he waved it away. Close. Too close.
Outside, clouds gathered heavy, wind whipping dust from the lots.
Storm brewed fast, thunder rumbling like distant shots. Shift ended abrupt, rain lashing as we bolted for cover. No choice but the storage shed, hunkered together against the downpour. Air thickened inside, damp and close, our breaths the only sound over the roar. Rain hammered the shed's tin roof, a relentless drum that drowned the factory's distant hum. We huddled on crates stacked with feed sacks, the lantern flickering between us, casting shadows that danced like ghosts on the walls. Elena pulled her knees up, arms wrapped tight, water dripping from her hair onto the rough wood. I sat close, not touching, but the space felt small. Her breath came steady, but her eyes flicked to the door, as if expecting it to burst. She struck a match first, the sulfur sharp in the damp air. Lit the lantern higher, flame steadying. Storms like this used to scare me, she said, voice low over the roar. Back when the factory was just Dad's dream. Pens full, but money tight. I nodded, watching the light play on her face, softening the lines work had carved. Stories came then, slow at first. Her guarded past spilled out. Father crushed under a hoist, gone in seconds, leaving her to stitch the family back. Brother too young, factory teetering on debt. She smuggled to keep it alive, small runs through the lines, nothing grand. Had to, or we'd lose everything. Parallels hit me hard. her scars hidden like mine under layers of callous and lies. I'd lost my own in a job gone wrong, partner bleeding out from my blade's slip. No family left to claim me. Isolation bound us, two women carved from the same hard earth. The chill seeped in, rain's bite cutting through our wet clothes. Her hand brushed mine in the dark as she shifted, reaching for a rag to wipe the lantern glass. Heat sparked there, sudden and real, cutting the cold like a blade through fog. Skin warm, rough from the grips and gears. I didn't pull away. Neither did she. My body leaned in, betraying the job's cold pull. Strike now, the contract whispered. Ended in this storm no one would hear. But want twisted inside, sharp as the thunder cracking outside. Her fingers lingered, tracing a vein on my wrist, eyes meeting mine unflinching. The air thickened, not just from the damp. I fumbled for a cigarette from my pocket, damp but salvageable. Offered one and she took it, our hands steadying each other. Lit it between us, smoke curling up like unspoken desires, gray trails mixing with the lantern's glow. Inhale, sharp, exhale, slow. Trust built in that shared drag, small but solid. You don't talk much, she said, smoke parting her lips. But I see it. The weight. I nodded, passing it back. Carries you sometimes. No more words needed. The storm raged, but inside, something settled. Hours blurred, rain easing to a patter. Dawn crept in gray through the cracks, lightening the shed. Clarity hit with the sun. Job still there, blade in my boot, but her warmth lingered like steam on skin. She stood, stretching, muscles shifting under her shirt. Storm's done. Come on deeper shifts today. Show you the night runs. Need steady hands. Invitation pulled me in, her gaze holding promise. I followed her out, mud sucking at my boots, the factory waiting like a beast rousing. Night shifts pulled me deeper, the factory's belly alive with low growls and hisses. Elena led the way that first run, her flashlight cutting through the dim corridors where day workers never went. Nights when we really work, she said, voice echoing off the metal walls. I nodded, falling into step, the air already thick with steam from the scalding vats. We joined the crew hauling crates of processed cuts to the loading docks, sweat beating fast under the harsh bulbs. Bodies moved close in the narrow aisles, shoulders brushing as we stacked and strapped. Her presence bound us, steam curling around her like a veil, sweat tracing lines down her neck. I felt it too, the heat binding skin to skin, the grind pulling us tighter than any rope. Hours blurred in the rhythm. Lift, shift, wipe. She directed without raising her voice, hands steady on the pallet jacks, muscles flexing under the strain. I matched her pace, crates heavy but the work grounding, like the weight of a blade after a long hunt. No time for thoughts of the contract then, just the shared effort, her quick glance my way when a load teetered. Got it, she'd murmur, and our hands would steady together, fingers overlapping brief. The steam clung, sweat mixing with the faint metallic tang, and something shifted in me. Not just the job anymore. Her. Break hit late, the crew scattering to the scarred table in the back room. I poured water from a jug, throat parched, and she slid in beside me, closer than needed. Stolen glances started there, her eyes meeting mine over the rim of her cup, holding just a beat too long. The room hummed with tired talk, but between us, silence thickened. Her knee brushed mine under the table, accidental at first, then lingering. I didn't move. Fingers found the edge of the bench, hers inching near, tips grazing my knuckles. Heat sparked low, not from the vats. Romantic pull, sharp as a hidden edge. I wanted to trace that line up her arm, feel the pulse beneath. But the blade in my boot pressed reminder. That night, after the break, I tried for intel. Slipped to her locker while she checked the cooling rooms, rifling quick for papers, anything on the smuggling. Heart thudded against my ribs, the lock easy to jimmy. Found manifests, coded notes on shipments, pork hides masking routes, time scrawled in her hand. Proof for the client, enough to wire the rest. But footsteps echoed close. I shoved them back, snapped the lock, stepped out casual. She rounded the corner, eyes narrowing. "What were you doing?" Voice low, but intuition sharpened it. She sensed the lie, the way my hand lingered too long on the door. "Just checking my gear." Weak. Her gaze bored in, seeing the cracks. Tension built through the shift's end. Words clipped as we finished the run. Back in the bunkhouse, it snapped. She cornered me by the lockers, away from the others. "You're not here for the work. I see it in your eyes. Watching too close, asking nothing." Argument flared, loyalties pulling taut as wire ready to snap. "Who sent you? Factory's got enemies, but you're different." I denied it, voice steady, but guilt twisted like a jammed gear. "Just need the pay, like you." Her face hardened, hurt flashing quick. "Loyalties matter here. Family does." She turned sharp, leaving me in the dim, the air heavy with unspoken cuts. Dawn broke gray, shift over, but sleep wouldn't come. I found her in the loading yard later, alone with the empty trucks, fog rolling in from the pens. "Wait." My voice cut the quiet. She stiffened but didn't walk. Apology came raw, vulnerability spilling like oil from a cracked line. "You're right. Not all truth. But it's not what you think. Past caught up. Old debts." Half lie, half real, the isolation we shared, the want pulling harder than duty. She turned, eyes searching. "Then what?" I stepped closer, hand reaching. "This. You." Her fingers met mine, tentative, then firm. Shared breath, the yard's chill fading. Trust mended there, fragile but real, her thumb tracing my palm. We parted slow, her shift calling back. I returned to the factory's hum, machines whirring awake. But shadows of past jobs haunted sleep that afternoon. Dreams of blades and blood, her face twisting in them. The contract waited, a weight I couldn't shake. That night pulled us to the hayloft above the factory's storage barn, the air still thick from the day's steam. Elena led me up the ladder after shift, her hand firm on the rungs, boots scraping wood worn smooth by years. "Need to check the feedstocks," she said, but her eyes said more. The loft smelled of dry grass and faint machine oil drifting up from below. We climbed in silence, the factory's low hum vibrating through the floorboards. Moonlight slanted through cracks in the slats, silvering the bales stacked high. She dropped onto one, patting the space beside her. I sat close, our shoulders touching, the pull between us taut as a conveyor belt straining. Words faded fast. Her hand found my knee, rough palm pressing warm through denim. I turned, met her gaze, dark, unflinching. Lips brushed first, tentative, then hungry. Bodies yielded then, hay scratching our backs as we shifted. Her shirt came off, slow, buttons catching on calluses. Skin met skin, hot and slick from the day's sweat. I traced her ribs, felt the rise of her breath quicken. She pulled me down, legs tangling in the rough straw. The world narrowed to her, muscles hard from hauling crates, soft curves yielding under my hands. No rush, just the slow press, her mouth on my neck, tasting salt. Sensory flood hit like scalding water. Her skin tasted of earth and faint brine, shattering the cold isolation I'd wrapped around myself for years. Lips on her collarbone, tongue tracing the line of a scar from some old factory mishap. Sharp, metallic tang mixed with her warmth. My hands gripped her hips, thumbs digging into the give of flesh, pulling her closer. She gasped low, fingers clutching my hair, guiding. Heat built, coiling tight in my gut, releasing in waves that left me trembling. Her body arched, breath ragged against my ear, the hayloft creaking under us. For those hours, the job vanished. Just her taste, her weight, the thud of hearts sinking like pistons. Dawn crept in pale, light filtering through the slats like steam from cooling baths. Reality crashed back. I woke first, her head on my shoulder, breath steady in sleep. The blade lay hidden in my boot below, cold metal waiting. Regret twisted sharp, contract burning in my mind, her trust soft in my arms. I slipped away quiet, dressed in the dim, hay clinging to my shirt. Down the ladder, boots soft on dirt, I felt the pull tear. She'd wake alone, wondering. The warmth lingered on my skin, but duty clawed in. Phone buzzed in my pocket as I hit the bunkhouse, client's number flashing. Update, the voice growled, tinny over the line. Timeline's tight, factory run tomorrow, end it clean. Pressure mounted. Money promised, but chains tightening. I muttered assurances, hung up, fist clenched around the device. Heart thudded heavy, echoing the factory's morning startup whine outside. Internal war raged. Strike now, collect, vanish into the fringes again. Or stay. Let this warmth seep deeper. Risk everything for a woman who'd cracked my walls. The blade felt like lead, her taste still on my tongue. Weighing it all, alone in the dim room, sweat beating cold. Elena found me later, mid-morning break, her eyes searching over coffee mugs. Last night, she started, voice low. I nodded, throat tight. Then her confession spilled, words rushed like water from a burst line. I fear outsiders. Factory's all we got, smuggling keeps it breathing, but enemies circle close. Lost too much to trust easy. Stakes rose sharp, her vulnerability a blade to my gut. Family tied to her crimes, not greed, protecting what little they had. I saw the web tighter now, my hit unraveling it all. Her hand brushed mine across the table, warm anchor. But the client's shadow loomed, decision pressing like the weight of a full crate. Afternoon dragged after her confession, the factory's whine a constant ache in my ears. I kept my distance through the shift, wiping down the deherring drums with mechanical pulls, water sluicing red over my hands. Her words echoed. Fear of outsiders, the smuggling just threads holding her world together. Family, not greed, but survival. It gnawed at me, twisting the contract's edges. I needed air, clarity. Slipped to the bunkhouse during a lull, pulling the burner phone from under the mattress. Client's note waited, terse. Tomorrow's run. End her, or we find someone who will. I scribbled a reply on scrap. Position confirmed, strike imminent, tucked it in my pocket for drop later. Careless. Left it on the edge of the bunk when I stood, mind elsewhere. She found it that evening, shift over, bunkhouse emptying. I was in the kitchen annex, heating beans on the communal stove, the air thick with grease and simmering tension. Door creaked, her steps heavy. What the hell is this? Voice low, but thunder in it. She held the note, paper crumpled in her fist, eyes burning like the scalding tanks. Complication cascaded then, fast as a burst pipe. My stomach dropped, blade's weight suddenly light. Elena, wait! But she cut me, waving it close. Position confirmed? Strike? You're one of them. Sent to take me out. The words hung, plates on the shelf rattling as she slammed a fist down, china clinking like distant shots. Heated clash exploded. I backed against the counter, hands up, but she advanced, accusation flying sharp. All of it. The looks, the touches, lies. Factory's enemies hire you types, but I thought... Her voice cracked, pain raw under the rage. I saw the hurt, deep as the cuts on the killing floor. Not like that, I said, voice steady but heart thudding. Job first, yeah, but you. It's real now. She laughed, bitter, short. Real? While planning my end? Plates shook again as she paced, the stove's heat mirroring the flush on her neck. I stepped forward, desperate. Listen, the smuggling, your family, it's not greed. I get that. But the client... Words tangled, duty chaining me like rusted iron, cold and unyielding. Pull to her, ward with the life I'd known. Hits clean, no mess. Emotional depth spilled then, admissions tearing free. Feelings hit hard, I said, voice dropping. Didn't expect you. The taste, the warmth, shattered everything. Her eyes softened a fraction, but suspicion held. Then why? Why stay? I reached, hand brushing her arm, rough skin grounding. Because leaving feels worse. But the job, it owns me. She pulled back, breath ragged, the kitchen closing in, smells of beans burning faint. Vulnerability hung between us, her plea unspoken yet. If it's real, prove it. Walk away. But chains tugged, client's shadow long. Night deepened outside, workers' voices fading. I turned for the door, escape pulling. Grab gear, slip town before dawn, wire failure to the contact. Failed. Her hand caught my wrist, firm as a grip on a lever. Don't. Stay. We can fight this together. Plea blocked me, her eyes holding mine, unflinching. Heat from the stove warmed my back, but her touch burned deeper. I stopped, door half open, cool air rushing in. Revelation settled heavier. Her crimes tied to protection, brother depending, factory their bloodline. Not the monster the client painted. Greed was theirs, not hers. She released me slow, note crumpling further in her pocket. Think on it. Door clicked shut behind her, leaving me in the dim kitchen, plates still humming faint. I sank to a chair, head in hands, the weight settling like steam after a kill. Night vigil stretched, alone with the dark, deciding between blood on my hands and the bond pulling taut. Blade waited in the bunk, but her scent lingered, choice carving deeper than any cut. Sleep came fitful that night, the bunkhouse air stale with sweat and doubt. I turned the choice over like a dull blade, her plea echoing against the factory's distant hum. Blood or bond? By dawn, decision settled heavy in my gut. The contract could choke on itself. I chose her, the warmth cracking through years of ice. Grabbed my gear quiet, blade sheathed but pistol loaded, and headed for the factory gates as the sun clawed over the horizon. Whistle blew sharp, workers filing in like shadows. Elena caught my eye across the yard, nod brief, trust fragile as rusted wire. We fell into the morning run, scrubbing lines slick with overnight residue, steam rising thick from the vats. Her brother, Marco, worked nearby, broad shoulders hunched over a conveyor, grease black under his nails. Family, she called them. I saw it now, the way he glanced her way, protective, the factory their shared scar. No words passed between us yet, just the rhythm of hoses blasting, water sheeting over metal. Tension simmered low, client's shadow waiting. It broke mid-shift. Trucks rumbled into the lot, not the usual haulers, blacked-out rigs, men spilling out with rifles slung low. Client's crew. Faces hard under caps, eyes scanning like hawks over pens. Gunfire cracked first from the loading dock, sharp pops cutting the whine of saws. Shouts erupted inside, workers scattering as bullets pinged off steel beams. Chaos swallowed the floor, crates toppling, steam hissing wild from a ruptured line. Elena's hand grabbed my arm, pulling me behind a scalding tank. Them? She whispered, voice taut. I nodded, pistol in my grip. For you. But not anymore. Heroic shift hit then, choice solid as a locked gear. I fired back, shots barking into the haze, dropping one near the chutes. Go with Marco, I yelled, covering as she bolted for her brother. Steam blinded, thick clouds billowing from the chaos, masking our moves. Men advanced through the killing floor, boots thudding over blood-slick grates, rifles spitting lead. I rolled behind a pallet jack, heart pounding steady, blade forgotten for the fight. Elena circled back, wrench in hand like a club, swinging at a shadow lunging from the deherring drums. We moved together, her at my flank, breath sinking in the roar. Gunfire echoed off walls, glass shattering from the office overhead. A bullet grazed my shoulder, fire lancing hot, but I pressed on, dropping another with a clean shot. Loss came swift. Marco cried out from the processing line, body crumpling as a round caught him low in the leg. Blood pooled dark on the concrete, mixing with the day's runoff. Elena reached him first, dragging him behind a crate stack, hands pressing the wound. Guilt weighed like a fallen beam, crushing my chest. My delay, my old ties bringing this. Hold on, she murmured, voice breaking, rag binding tight. I covered them, firing blind into the steam, bullets whizzing past. One more down, then silence, broken only by groans and the drip of leaks. Client's men retreated ragged, tires screeching out the gates, leaving bodies in smoke. Alliance formed in the ruins, trust rebuilt in that shared blood. Elena looked up from Marco, eyes meeting mine through the haze. No accusation, just steel. You chose. I knelt beside them, hand on her shoulder, steady. Couldn't not. Workers emerged, cautious, tending the hurt, factory groaning like a wounded beast. Marco grimaced but nodded my way, pain etching his face. Hands clasped then, hers rough in mine. Alliance sealed amid the wreckage, steam curling, metal twisted, but us, whole. Surviving together brought glimpses of chosen family, whispers cutting the aftermath din. Stay, she said low, binding my graze with steady pulls. Build with us. Marco grunted agreement, legs splinted rough. Future flickered there, nights without blades, days in the grind turned shared. No more lone fringes, isolation traded for this crew, their scars weaving into mine. Cleanup stretched into dusk, hoses rinsing blood from grates, air heavy with iron and relief. Reflection settled as I wiped down the tanks. Change path clear. From cold hits to this. Warmth in the steam. Bond stronger than any contract. The factory hummed on, pulling me deeper. Dusk settled over the factory grounds, the air cooling to a hush after the chaos. We dragged Marco to the bunkhouse, his leg bound tight with rags from the supply shed. Elena worked steady, cleaning the wound with boiled water from the canteen stove, her hands sure despite the tremble I saw in her jaw. I knelt beside her, passing strips of clean cloth, the concrete floor hard under my knees. Silence fell like dew on the rusted pipes outside, heavy but easing the day's sharp edges. My shoulder throbbed where the bullet grazed, blood seeping through my shirt, but I ignored it. Hold still, she murmured to him, voice low. Marco grunted, sweat beading on his brow, but his eyes met mine, gratitude mixed with the pain. No words needed. The factory loomed dark beyond the window, machines quiet for once, as if breathing with us. She turned to me next, fingers peeling back my sleeve. The cut burned under her touch, but her palms pressed cool salve from a tin, wrapping it tight. Our eyes locked in the lamplight, her face close, breath warm on my skin. You fought for us, she said, tying the knot. I nodded, throat tight. Couldn't walk. Healing stretched there, not just the flesh, wounds mending in the quiet, her care pulling me from the lone path I'd known. Isolation faded slow, like steam dissipating from the vats, replaced by this crew's rhythm. Workers filtered in later, bandaging their own scrapes, sharing water and nods. No questions about me, just space at the table. Part of it now, the grind turned anchor. Days blurred into routine, the factory stirring back to life under gray skies. I took shifts on the lines again, but different. Hauling crates with Marco on lighter runs, his limp easing as he joked about my aim. Elena guided me through the maintenance, her shoulder brushing mine in the steam, no pretense left. Emotional weight lifted, from lone wolf prowling fringes to this crew's steady pull. Isolation cracked open, letting warmth seep in like oil into gears. Laughter came easier over breaks, her hand finding mine under the table, fingers lacing, brief but firm. The smuggling threads we cut loose, clients' men scattered, no sign of pursuit. Loose ends tied quiet. I ditched the burner phone in the pen's muck, contracts burned in a trash barrel. New life settled in rural anonymity. The border town's dust, our cover. Factory hum, our heartbeat. Nights brought the real shift. One evening, after the whistle blew, she led me to the loading yard's edge, away from the lights. Stars punched through the haze, vast over the flatland. We sat on stacked pallets, her back against my side, head on my shoulder. Quiet promise hung in the air, her hand tracing my arm slow. This, she whispered, lips brushing my ear. I turned, pulled her close, mouths meeting soft under the open sky. Tastes lingered sweeter now, her skin like sun-warmed earth, no brine or blood, just us. Bodies pressed, slow and deep, her legs wrapping mine as we shifted on the wood. Heat built gentle, hands exploring scars we'd shared, breaths mingling in the cool night. No rush, just the yield, her gasp low against my neck. Vulnerability wrapped us then, strength in the give, not the guard.
Transformation settled complete by morning's light. Vulnerability, my new edge, sharper than any blade.
Family chosen, not blood, but this bond, her and Marco and the crew, weaving me in. No more cold hits, just the daily rhythm pulling steady. Factory gates creaked open at dawn, whistle calling us back. But I walked with her now, hand in hers. The horizon less empty.
Weeks ground on after the fight, the factory's rhythms pulling me in like the steady drag of a conveyor belt. I learned them deep now, starting with the pre-dawn checks on the scalding tanks, water hissing hot as Elena's hand guided mine over the valves. Her touch stayed steady. No rush, just the press of calluses teaching pressure points, the metal warming under our palms. Shifts blurred into muscle memory, hauling hides from the pen's muck, the tang of wet earth mixing with machine oil. No more lone watches in the dark. I moved with the crew, backs bending in sync, the whine of blades a constant undercurrent to our breaths. Her circle opened slow, warmth seeping through the steam like sun-cutting fog. Marco first, leg healing crooked but strong, sharing smokes on the loading dock after runs. "You saved us," he'd say, voice rough, passing the pack without looking. Others followed. Cousins on the deherring line, aunts in the packing room, their nods turning to words over lunch pails. Stories of old factory fires, lost shipments, laughter cracking dry over burnt coffee. They thawed my edges, isolation peeling back layer by layer, like rust flaking from pipe joints. Elena watched it all, her smile faint but real, pulling me into the web with a glance. Intimacy tried and stumbled at first, awkward as a jammed gear. One break, I reached for her hand across the scarred table, fingers clumsy in the open. She froze, crew glancing, heat rising in my face. Laughter eased it, hers low, mine choked, as she laced them anyway, thumb tracing my knuckles slow. Another night, in the bunkhouse shadows, I pulled her close too quick, elbows knocking crates. We broke apart giggling, breaths short, her forehead to mine. "Easy," she murmured, guiding my hands gentler, bodies finding rhythm in the dim. Laughs bound us tighter, failures turning to heat, her mouth on mine tasting of salt and shared ease. Whispers of pursuit simmered low, tension like distant thunder over the pens. A truck idled too long at the gates one dawn, driver scanning before peeling out. Marco caught it, muttering about old enemies circling. Elena's jaw tightened during checks, eyes flicking to the horizon, but she said nothing, just gripped my arm firmer. The threat hung faint, a shadow in the steam, but it sharpened the days. Locks checked twice, shifts paired. No strike came, but the air thickened, factory walls feeling closer. Growth came in quiet tells, my scars spilling steady one evening in the storage shed. Lantern low, her head on my shoulder as I traced the old blade mark on my ribs. "Job gone wrong," I said, voice even, the words heavy but free. "Lost someone. Built walls after." She nodded, fingers following the line, her own stories weaving back, father's crush, smuggling's weight. No pity, just the settle of truth between us, voices steady in the dark. Vulnerability fit now, not a crack but a join, stronger for the mend. Storm gathered slow, decisions echo lengthening the job's old shadow. Clients' reach felt farther, but doubts lingered in the quiet hours, pulling at the edges of this new bind. Our hands intertwined on the factory porch at dusk, horizon vast and open, dust settling like a held breath. Isolation traded for roots here, her taste of home found in every shared shift, sweeter than any forgotten contract. If this pull resonates, share your hidden connections below.
Subscribe for more raw truths from the edge.